Spy is autistic. What? No. How is he autistic? He says a kid who never grew up. Well, you might think that way, but there's a reason for that. It's your lost star. No one's going to watch that. But if you're dismissing my headcanon, then you just don't understand what I go through every day. Then prove it. Prove how SpongeBob could be autistic. Certain. But before we can prove her, we need to know what autism is. According to the DSM-5, autism spectrum disorder, or autism for short, is a narrowed down mental condition that affects communication as well as having restricted and repetitive behaviors. That's the basic definition, but you can't believe how confusing it is. What counts as a communication problem? What behavior counts as being restricted? Repetitive? And those are not even messages support needs. It says a mess. So, what as confusing as the condition is, how do you find out that SpongeBob's autistic? Well, we'll go down every trait that SpongeBob has for communication to repetitive behavior. Without further ado, let's start with not understanding various speech. I'll play you audio for when I strike. Try to interpret the message from it.
I will dismantle this oppressive establishment board by board. I will saw the tables of tyranny in half. Gnaw at the ankles of big business.
After hearing that, you would assume that SpongeBob has finally taken going on strike seriously. But once I show you the videos, it's clear that he's taking it too literally. The Sponge took out a board for the restaurant, he saw a table in half, and he ate a support. Why would he go out of his way to do that? Well, autistic people focus more on the words themselves, rather than tone. This means that any various speech would be taken literally by them, causing confusion between autistic people and autistic people. People who aren't autistic? Great. You turn a joke into it being a simple autism. This helped me die. I know that, but these autistic traits are supposed to be made fun of. Rather, it's meant to make us feel bad for them. That's just one example, and you bet I would cry over that. I found it to be hilarious. Fine, if you think that trait was funny, then how about this one? He's oblivious today, sir. And I, your business fanatic, SpongeBob wants to join Capius's club because he admires him. So the cucumber decides to test the Sponge's abilities, which is just an excuse to bully him. While Kevin tried to get Delphis to sass SpongeBob, tie him to a pole and use a Queen Delphis robot to drag him down. For any normal person, they would notice that Kevin was bullying them and call all ties with him. But for SpongeBob, he doesn't know that. It wasn't until months later that he learned the truth. But even after that, The spud still follows his idol to this day. So, is SpongeBob that oblivious to danger? Yes, unfortunately. You see, autistic people are more prone to be taken advantage of. This is because they have troubles identifying red flags in familiar's behavior. To them, they see friendly because they act friendly. But to everyone else, we know there's sentiment in you. The fact that this happens to SpongeBob so often is just making me sad. Like, do you think this is something you should laugh at? Yes. Well, I don't. Unless you're doing it to relieve your stress like I do. Anyway, let's move on. Not understanding personal space. If there's one thing you know about SpongeBob, then you'll know that he likes swimwear a lot. No doubt he loves being around the octopus so much that at one point he thought it was swinging on him. This is how much swimwear feels about SpongeBob violating his personal space. Okay, that point seems like autistic people are stalkers or worse, but I trust you that they're not that freaky. Why is a result of that habit hypersensitivity? Hypersensitivity is when a person has little to no sensory input. This can happen to 8 of the 8 senses. Yes, I say 8. We all know the 5 basic senses: sight, taste, touch, hearing, and smell. But do you know that there are 3 more? Intersensing, fancier, and pulsensing? Yeah, I didn't know either. Pulsensing is when your body can sense its movement and location. But if you have little pulsatility input, then your body will have problems identifying them. So a person like SpongeBob may not be aware that they're getting too close to someone. That is, unless you tell them directly.
SpongeBob, do you remember that little talk we had about personal space?
I know that SpongeBob is well-intentioned and all, but maybe he should learn how to get around his hypersensitivity, because that would save him a lot for the backlash he gets occasionally. Speaking of which, he has a small friend group. While SpongeBob likes to call everyone his friend, most of them are acquaintances at best. The only friends that he does have a close relationship with are Patrick, Sandy, and of course Squidward. So why does he have a small friend group then? Well, autistic people struggle to maintain relationships. This is partly due to communication issues and partly due to ageism, when able people call disabled people inferior. The show has shown us multiple times that the key problemites are against SpongeBob. They tease him for having his grandma kiss him on his forehead. They call him out for driving Patrick away, even if he's in the right there. And let's not forget National No SpongeBob Day, a day when the whole town disses him, burns a wooden replica of him, and dances on its asses. If that isn't blatant atheism, then I don't know what will. So it does make sense that SpongeBob wanted to find people who can stand his narco nonsense. Unfortunately, he didn't. But bad, there are people who believe that Patrick and Squidward could be neurodivergent as well. If that theory is true, then it would make a lot of sense. It's common that neurodivergent people would make neurodivergent friends because they understand what they're going through more than neurotypical ones. I'm not saying that neurotypical people are inferior. It's just that they're so used to the status quo that A Dipwitz is considered a threat to them. So I'm glad that SpongeBob was able to befriend like-minded people, because otherwise he would be depressed in Alias Town. Appearance confusion. There are times when SpongeBob doesn't recognize his friends or mistake one person for another. For minor ones, like Slipper having a full beer.
May I help you, sir?
It's me, you dunce!
Oh, hi, Squidward!
To major ones, like thinking that a potato is Mrs. Puff.
Oh, Mrs. Puff! It's been so long! Did you miss me?
These moments look like SpongeBob's naive, but it could instead be a result of polopacia. I probably mispronounced that. Polopacia, also known as baseblitis, is a condition that affects a person's ability to recognize familiar faces and facial expressions. The main SpongeBob characters are diverse enough that anyone can tell who is who, but as we can see in Wednesday Off, it only takes a small taste for SpongeBob to not notice his neighbor, and will you believe it, polopacia is common in autistic people. Great, as if we need to make communication even more difficult. Now that explains SpongeBob not recognizing his friends, but how about him mistaking strangers as them? Well, that's simple. Some autistic people have good pattern recognition skills. If they remember a pattern enough times, then it'll stay in their mind forever. This is useful for stuff like how to make a Krabby Patty, but it can also cause someone to mistake one thing for another, all because it has serious characteristics to it. So, if you want to twist SpongeBob, then create a fake replica of his friends and make himself fall into it immediately. That's gonna be funny as heck. Dar, have you seen my Hell Wanted video? Bet this will happen to you if you mess with innocent people like him. It's not like I care about him anyway. You haven't even told your beers why you did his autism. Every tweet you message so far can happen to anyone, not just autistic people. I'm doing that right now. Also, it's rude for you to assume that everyone's autistic. There's a difference between the traits being detrimental to you and it being just a minor inconvenience. You're still not getting it, huh? Well, how about these repetitive and restricted behaviors then?
Continue stimming.
We had talked about hypersensitivity when it comes to possession. Now let's talk about Basier-ness. Basier is where your ear helps you keep balance. But if you're hypersensitive to that, then you'll need to make repetitive movements to fulfill that. This is known as stimming and can happen in May 1st, as so by SpongeBob. He flashes his hands while talking about his experience with Santa Claus. He sings a song about how much he loves Krabby Patties, or 90 times, and his hands start wiggling after Squidward gets inside him.
Why are you moving your arms like that?
I guess they're happy.
Hand them over.
Now, I should note that autistic stimming isn't just a sign of pleasure, but it can also be a sign of a meltdown. And SpongeBob does that too, but I'll get to that later. He swallows to drive. Take a Boy School episode for example. In most of them, SpongeBob keeps failing his driving tests.
Now, what do you do next?
Floor it?
Yes. No! Don't floor it!
Okay, floor it!
No!
Now, you may call SpongeBob clueless for not understanding the test, but you would be one. He can't pass the wicked person of the test. He says can't pass the dry one. What really happened here was that SpongeBob was having an anxiety attack. Anxiety is when you start to worry about an upcoming event, thinking about the worst case scenario possible. While anyone can feel this emotion, there are cases where it gets so intense that it starts to interfere with your daily life. For SpongeBob, he keeps stressing out about the test over and over again that it inevitably causes him to crash the boat, confirming his fear of failure. Now, you may be worrying why I mentioned anxiety and be about autism. Well, it should come to no surprise that autistic people are stressed out daily because they have to worry about offending autistic people just for being themselves. So they're more likely to have an anxiety disability on top of their condition. Man, this video's making me sad even more than it already is. SpongeBob, maybe you should just give up on getting your driving license. It's not worth your mental health. He's witty oriented. Let's be honest here. Most people get a job to pay the bills, but they secretly hate it. So it comes to my surprise that SpongeBob loves working at the Krusty Krab. You know, the place whose boss is targeting you for existing.
What is this? You're making me pay you to stand at the cash register?
But despite that, the boss isn't bothered by bad business practices. What he is bothered by, though, is him being forced to leave the restaurant. Whenever this happens, SpongeBob will immediately try to go back there.
Got your steaming hot bun delivery here.
Huh? What's the big idea here?
You may be worrying why SpongeBob hasn't moved on at this point. Well, he's a witty-oriented person. And witty-oriented people are more comfortable having a predictable schedule rather than being flexible. So if you were to break that, then it will cause them distress. Firstly, every time SpongeBob got dismissed for his job, it was made on the spot. He got dismissed over a nickel, he got dismissed for going on strike, and he got dismissed for doing kawaii at work. Though, to be fair, that last one wasn't even his fault. This boss is so dedicated to his job that taking it away from him is like losing a friend, and he needs all the support he could get. Well, at least there's someone who does like their job, though. It has Idrises. Throughout the series, SpongeBob has like a lot of hobbies and activities. But there are two that he's attached to, Jellyfishing and Merman and Burger Boy. In the Pit Per Lawyer, SpongeBob knows various kinds of jellyfish, like the city one or the blue one. He also likes eating their jelly, Nate is not all reliable, and constantly attests jellyfish it costs. Does these sound like a noble hobby to you? Same thing with Murder Man and Prodigal Boy. Not only is SpongeBob an avid watcher of the TV series, he also collects the comics, has the figurines, and even cosplay as his heroes. Not to mention that he got to meet the real Murder Man and Burger Boy a few times already. Even though I mentioned that SpongeBob is attached to jellyfishing and the comics, they're actually his intense interests. Intense interests are when autistic people will focus on a specific topic for a long time. They can research it, by studying related to it, or watch an 8-hour YouTube video of it. It's almost like their intense interests are part of their identity or something. Now, I should note that while intense interests are seen as positive, it can have their downsides too. Since they occupy most of an autistic person's brain, they're going to neglect their needs and responsibilities for them. And there's an incident of that happening to SpongeBob. In this scene, he disses Bully School just so he could get Murder Man's and Burger Boy's autographs. Had Mrs. Puff not got arrested for dissing Dirty Doing, she would have totally called him out for it. So just like every other autistic trait that I mentioned earlier, they could be either good or bad depending on the situation. Now, with all of these traits mentioned, there's no doubt that SpongeBob is in fact autistic, and I'm not alone in this either. Todd Kenny, SpongeBob's voice actor, has said multiple times that he did SpongeBob's autistic too, but it wasn't until July 2024 in a panel that it became public knowledge.
This last con that I did in South Texas, in McAllen, Texas, it was the first time I'd ever been asked this question. A person who was, obviously on the spectrum, came up to me and said, "Hey, I have a question for you, Tom Kenny. Is SpongeBob autistic?" Wow. Is SpongeBob himself autistic? Right. And I said, "Yes, of course." I said, "Of course he is."
Okay, I get that Kenny's not a liar, but that quote right there confirms my headcanon. So autistic fans, we dice. No, it's not canon. At this point, Yerkes claimed that every annoying trait is autism and used Todd Kenny's words to confirm it. Stop reinforcing the stigma, Star. Just take a look at yourself. Do you even know what autism is? All I know is that autistic people are soulless geniuses, not annoying brats. That's the point. People only have one feel of autism due to how the media portrays them. They're usually white cis men who are treated more like an object rather than an actual living being. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't autistic people like them. I just saying that this stereotype has led to marginalized autistic people be undiagnosed, get diagnosed late, or having their condition not be taken seriously. I bet you thought I was a neurotypical person, but I'm autistic. It seems like I'm neurotypical because I can do my chores, communicate with others, and express emotions, but I also hyperbolize way too often, can't understand various speech too well, and accidentally end conversations too soon. You just don't get to see that because people dismiss my autistic traits as me being dramatic. Like, I didn't even know I was autistic until I was 9 years old. I thought I was just being shy, but it turned out that I was actually being racist instead. I knew I was different, but I didn't want anyone to bully me for it, so I tried to hide it for as long as I could. However, that part only led me to having a mental breakdown. Afterward, I decided the message wasn't worth it and started to embrace my true self. And it was worth it. All my mental health issues had gone away thanks to this decision. Now, the reason why I did SpongeBob's autistic is that I relate to his struggles. He keeps failing his driving tests, people kept bullying him, and he tries to fit in by being number ones. And that's the difference between an autistic colored character and a confirmed one. Autistic people aren't only there for weaponization. They have their own feelings and personalities outside of them. Honestly, I'd rather have an autistic person be called annoying than nothing at all. At least people notice their personality. So, if you still believe that SpongeBob's not autistic, then that's fine. I'm not trying to sway your opinion or anything. I just wanted to let you know that autistic people have to deal with bullying alongside their condition every day. So it's up to you to decide whether to reinforce the stigma or not. I didn't know that autistic people have feelings and personalities this entire time. That's what I get for watching official autism media for the past decade. Anyway, I'm so sorry for dismissing your hand cannon star. I'll make sure not to hurt you, SpongeBob, or any other autistic person ever again. That's the spirit, Dark, and I hope you feel the same way too. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. This one means a lot to me because I'm autistic myself, and I wanted more people to understand what the condition really is. But if I did get sent this one about it though, then let me know in the comments. Because that's what being a content creator is. You get to build your own community of like-minded people, and that's great for people like me who does constantly get lonely offline. So I'm thankful for your support. But I can't grow my audience alone. So if you want more people to see this video, then go hit that like button. Anyway, with that being said, I will see you stars in the sky tonight.